Besim Ba'ab, Werwald, Mefeskadus, Adawamla, Amin. Besim Ba'ab, Werwald, Mefeskadus, Adawamla, Amin. Besim Ba'ab, Werwald, Mefeskadus, Adawamla, Amin. Yes, good morning, and hope everyone's doing well this Wednesday. So today's reading is Joshua 6. Give thanks. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the children of Israel. No one went out and no one came in. Yahweh said to Joshua, "Behold, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and the mighty men of valor. All of your men of war shall march around the city, going around the city once. You shall do this 6 days. 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. It shall be that when they have made a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout. Then the city wall shall fall down flat, and the people shall go up, every man straight in front of him." Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of 7 horns before Yahweh's ark." They said to the people, "Advance, march around the city, let the armed men pass on before Yahweh's ark." It was so that when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram horns before Yahweh advanced and blew trumpets, and the ark of Yahweh's covenant followed them. The armed men went before the priests who blew the trumpets, and the ark went after them. The trumpets sounded as they went. Joshua commanded the people, saying, "You shall not shout, nor let your voice be heard, neither shall any voice proceed out of your mouth until the day I tell you to shout. Then you shall shout." So he caused Yahweh's ark to go around the city, circling it once, then came into the camp and stayed into the camp. Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up Yahweh's ark. The 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram horns in front of Yahweh's ark went on continually and blew the trumpets. The armed men went in front of them. The rear guard came after Yahweh's ark. The trumpets sounded as they went. The 2nd day they marched around the city once and returned into the camp. They did this 6 days. On the 7th day they rose early at the dawning of the day and marched around the city, in the same way 7 times. On this day only they marched around the city 7 times. At the 7th time, when the priest blew the trumpet, Joshua said to the people, "Shout, for Yahweh has given you the city. The city shall be devoted, even it and all that is in it, to Yahweh. Only Rahab the prostitute shall live, she and all who are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. But as for you, only keep yourselves from what is devoted to destruction, lest when you have devoted it, you take of the devoted thing, so you would make the camp of Israel accursed and troubled it. But all the silver, gold, and vessels of bronze and iron are holy to Yahweh. They shall come into Yahweh's treasury." So the people shouted, and the priests blew the trumpets. When the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight in front of him, and they took the city. They utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, both young and old, ox and sheep and donkey, with the edge of the sword. Joshua said to the 2 men who had spied up out of the land, "Go into the prostitute's house and bring the woman and all that she has out from there, as you swore to her." The young men who were spies went in and brought out Rahab with her father, her mother, and her brothers, and all that she had. They also brought out all of her relatives, and they set them outside of the camp of Israel. They burned the city with fire and all that was in it. only they put the silver and gold, the vessels of bronze, and of iron into the treasury of Yahweh's house. But Rahab the prostitute, her father's household, and all that she had, Joshua saved alive. She lived in the middle of Israel to this day, because she has hid the messengers from Joshua sent out to spy on Jericho. Joshua commanded them with an oath at that time, saying, Cursed is the man before Yahweh, who rises up and builds this city Jericho. With the loss of his firstborn he will lay his foundation, and with the loss of his youngest son he will set up its gates. So Yahweh was with Joshua, and his fame was in all the land. For these few words I give thanks, blessings and love. So I'll do a quick recap just because there's a lot going on in this chapter. It starts off by saying that the city of Jericho was tightly defended because they knew that the Hebrew people were on its cusp, ready to invade. So the kings of Jericho put their defenses in and tightly shut the city. And then there's this instruction by God to Joshua to say that rather than invading Jericho with strict military force, that there be a much more ritualistic process to this taking of the first city that was to fall to the children of Israel. So the instructions was that there be 7 priests with trumpets and forming a procession. After that, there would be the Ark of the Covenant, and after that would be the Hebrew soldiers who were heavily armed. And each day, for 6 days, they had to circle the walls of Jericho. But they could only circle it once and then go back to their camp. So they did this for 6 days, and on the 7th day, they had to do exactly the same, but this time circle the city 7 times. And after the 7th circlement, they had to blow their trumpets, they had to start shouting, making their presence known and calling out to Yahweh. And then at that moment, the walls of Jericho would fall. And that's exactly what happened according to how it's written. So the Hebrews went in and they essentially sacked and destroyed everything in the city of Jericho, which was God's instruction. But the house of Rahab was saved. Everyone that was inside the house. If you remember, Rahab, she was the prostitute who harbored the spies when they went in, and the agreement was in reward for her being showing kindness to the spies from Hebrew, that anyone who was in her house would be saved at the point that Jericho was taken. So that included her father, her brother, and the rest of her extended family. And it says that they continue to live in Israel safe up to this day at the point that this was written. And then finally, under Joshua's command, it says that the city of Jericho would not be rebuilt, and it's there to be left as a sign of the conquering by the children of Israel, and anyone who tries to rebuild Jericho will be cursed. So yeah, a huge amount going on. So yeah, as it says, one with Rahab, that's God's promise that he honored, showing kindness start to pay fruit. And in the future chapters, we see Rahab get married, and she ends up being an ancestor of Jesus Christos himself. So that kindness was blessed in the fullness of time. In terms of the actual taking of Jericho, this is often read as an analogy and an allegory, and particularly in the Eastern Orthodox and Ethiopian Orthodox traditions, that and Bible in general, that the taking of Jericho is seen through a spiritual prism, not strictly a military prism, because of the ritualistic element that was needed to take the city of Jericho, and it was not just done by force. So, for example, in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 30, it talks about how the fall of Jericho was an act of faith in action, and it talks about how the walls of the city of Jericho fell through the enactment of faith, and through circling the walls 7 times. In the book of Revelation 8, it talks about the 7 trumpets, and that analogy is brought back in terms of spiritual war, spiritual victory, and it's not victory through might alone, it's victory with God, putting God at the center of it and having strong faith. And that's very much the victory, that faith is overcoming non-belief, that good is overcoming evil. So it's seen very much on a spiritual dimension. So the walls of Jericho are likened to the strongholds of the soul, or the walls that we can put up around our heart, these defenses. And it's only through things like prayer and fasting and the sacraments within the Orthodox Church and other practices that these walls, these defenses that we put up, that are trying to push God away. And we might be trying to push God away for many reasons. It might be through pride, it might be through lack of belief or faith, it might be through sin, it might be through fear, embarrassment, because we want to keep perpetuating our our bad habits, etc. So we put up these walls of defenses, and they can sound very rational, and they can sound very intellectual. We don't believe in God because this, that and the other, but actually they're walls of defenses. That I talked yesterday about the importance of, in the Orthodox Church, when we take off our shoes, when we go into the church, for example, is this humbling of oneself. So the walls of Jericho are seen is this analogy of these walls that we put up that doesn't let God in, but through prayer, through fasting, through the sacraments and these other practices, given to charity, we start one by one to allowing these walls to fall and to allow God into our lives and into our souls, and with a humble heart, accepting that he is the glory goes to him in every aspect and for everything, even for the achievements that we think we brought on ourselves. But it's through the inspiration of the Almighty that allows us the motivation to do those ambitions in a way which is pleasing in his eyesight. So the reading of these, and very much throughout the book of Joshua, is very much one of analogy and allegory, to see how we can translate these narratives into our own personal lives in a very direct way. So that tradition will continue as I read through the book of Joshua and onwards into the book of Judges, and throughout the Bible. That's very much how it goes. So I'll end it here. So give thanks for listening. Hope some of it resonated. Have a blessed day, and God willing, be back more tomorrow. Give thanks. Glory to God.